Hey everyone, it's Sam, and I'm here on Saturday, November 26th at 1 p.m. Pacific time talking about Jupiter and Saturn now moving forward. They had been retrograde for a while and moving forward toward a new chapter in 2023. I'm also going to touch on the upcoming, I already did the 2023 Vedic astrology forecast. You should be looking ahead. It's only about a month away. And all kinds of things happening, eclipses, important shifts. And in that 2023 forecast that I did, or that I've already done the recording, and you can get access to it. It's more than an hour long, very comprehensive. I also talk about each of the 12 signs, of course, including yours, and the 10, and how Saturn moving through Aquarius, where he's going to be moving, is going to be an important shift for everyone for the next couple years. I'm going to touch on that today as I foreshadow the upcoming Jupiter Saturn, as we move into next year, as they're both moving forward now. And I'll be talking about Saturn in Capricorn, which actually began with the sort of COVID era, right? When Saturn went into Capricorn, that's when we had COVID. Shortly after, Jupiter joined, Mars even joined. And it's been since then, since like early 2020, that we've been living through the Saturn in Capricorn era. And then Jupiter, then as it moves into Aquarius, it's going to be showing a new collective around where we're going next, because that's really what Aquarius is about. So I'm going to talk about that. Also, Jupiter is going to continue through Pisces into next April, and then it's going to go into Aries and join Rahu in 2023. This is like an eccentric new beginning related to our teachings, our philosophies, our principles, those things that we're looking to inspire us, which is what Jupiter is all about. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm also going to be opening it up for questions through Super Chat on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature, which is where you pay a little bit. You don't have to pay a lot, but when you donate through the Super Chat, I'll be answering some questions through Super Chat. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So, hang in there and we'll get to it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So, as you could see, that's what we're going to be talking about. And again, just real quick before we dive in, you can go to 2023vedicastrology.com. You can see the banner there at the bottom to get this free forecast. Again, it's more than an hour long. We'll talk about the 10 biggest shifts for Saturn and Aquarius for your sign and all other signs. And you can see these are the 10 shifts. I'm going to drop a link there in the comments here live. In fact, I'll just do it right now. I meant to have this, but putting the other stuff together. 2023 vedicastrology.com, and I'll have a link in the video itself. So that will be also a very good thing for you to look at going forward. So this Saturn in Capricorn started in, I believe it was exactly January 2020, and that really showed the beginning of the what I call the COVID era, because it's when we started to get that intensity around all of the sort of social constraints and issues that we would associate with since we've had the COVID era. And many of us said at the time that it would show this whole kind of cycle of reorienting our money, our values, bringing this pressure. It was going to shatter a lot of illusions around our collective realities at the time and things like that. And of course, it really has. Sorry, I'm looking here real quick at the just so I could get the exact time that we started with the COVID. And I should have looked at that before, but either way. So again, this whole Saturn through Capricorn cycle started back then. I'm looking at here. It was early February 2020. Sorry. So since then, it's been this sort of cycle. And you can look at Saturn through the signs and these different cycles. Think of everything since February 2020 that we've been looking at and the world then, how a lot of illusions have been shattered around, again, our money, our I should say, personal fears and insecurities, how much the world has changed since then, what we were believing then or what we were concentrating on and committed to then has maybe gone through major changes and upheavals through this pressure of Saturn since February 2020 has really changed a lot of things. I remember when Saturn first went into Capricorn, here in the US, we were about to start the 2020 election. Well, the election cycle was happening. On the Democratic side, there were still the Democratic primaries, and there was this battle between all of the Democratic rivals. Was Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden. We didn't have a nominee, right? And all of that stuff was going on. And then right in the midst of that, COVID hit. And of course, then all of it shifted, and we went through that summer with the BLM uprisings, and then we had the 2020 election, and then since then Biden's presidency and all of this stuff going on. So we were just on the other side of that. Look at how much Saturn through Capricorn has changed. On the other side of that, it seems like a different world. The world before COVID seems like a totally different world. And Saturn went into Capricorn right in early February before any of that pressure landed on us. I said when it happened, of course, in the midst of all the other stuff that's going on, it was going to really be a recalibration of our money, of our time. I saw it as a great opportunity for people to migrate out of all this wasted time and resources that we were doing through our jobs, and certainly migrate more online. Virtual world was going to get very, explosive in a good way, where people who, especially all of these jobs where people had to drive to these jobs, all of these tech jobs where we have to drive to this place and sit in this building, all of that was going to shift into a remote landscape. Aside from all of the triggering and stuff around COVID and all the stuff around masks and vaccines, which I'm not going to get into, that those were anecdotal and incidental, but more sustaining and more enduring into the future. The things I was saying was this was going to be the great benefit. We're going to get our time back. We all suddenly had a lot more time than we thought we had. We stopped wasting our time so much. But we also had a lot more time now that we're not wasting it sitting in traffic in our job. First of all, many of us lost a job for a while, or at least lost the need to have to go there. We started doing it remotely. So we got all this time back. But now what are we doing with our time? Again, Saturn is the planet of time. We got that time to be by ourselves and sit there and realize that we're immature emotionally, frustrated emotionally, all of the, look at how depressed we are because we're spending so much time alone. And this is what you hear in the media or hear on the news, how traumatizing it is because we're spending so much time alone. We're social creatures. We need to be around each other. No, of course, all that's true. And we waste a lot of time doing things that, especially even just for work and to make money and all of those things that are also related to sustenance and survival. All of, Saturn going through Capricorn really shifted that whole paradigm. We also saw literally a whole shift of money, allocation of money just created out of thin air with all of and it was globally, right? Global recession, and all of these things, because we just created more fiat capital that didn't exist. We also saw the allocation of most of that money to the, corporations and the rise and the rise of awareness of the corruption and the unsustainable values and value system that we have in the International Monetary Fund, and people finally waking up to these things that have been there for decades. It's nothing new, but people woke up during this time of isolation and woke up to these realities of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund and the those meetings that had been happening in Davos forever. And I remember when the World Bank was protested back in the early 2000s, late 90s, or certainly early 2000s. Nobody really seemed to pay any attention to it, but now we suddenly wake up to it, and waking up to something that had been there the whole time, particularly in the midst of, okay, and then they made these vaccines, and now they're doing all of this, and gave rise to all the conspiracies and the conflation of all that, which, again, I'm not going to get into validating or not validating that. Those things have been around forever. But waking up to them, especially at those times, again, this whole Saturn and Capricorn cycle that we've been through really started and has continued since then. And so waking up to all of that is good, and then bringing pressure onto these systems. And now we're going to take those forward with Saturn moving into Aquarius in late January of 2023. So on the other side of these, potentially dark scenarios, there's a more creative way to move forward with them, that we're all going to be looking at collectively starting in early next year. In 2023, in January 2023, we'll be taking those things forward, hopefully in a positive way, collectively. I feel more hopeful now than I have in quite a while. Certainly, for example, after the 2020 election, which happened right after, again, Saturn hadn't been in Capricorn very long once we had the 2020 election in the US, and Biden won. But then after that, and since then, there's been so many moves toward, like election denying, and then literally trying to put in place people that would not honor the next elections and things like that. This last midterm that happened in the US really pushed back against all of that. And it was like a wall that at least came down against those things that were very scary relative to at least being able to move forward without the threat of future elections just being irrelevant. I mean, literally, there's one political party in the US that's like, well, if we win the election, it's fine. If we lose, it was rigged. And so we're going to put people in place that are going to pass laws and overturn elections that we don't win. And again, if you happen to be on that side and think I'm exaggerating, that's fine. But for the rest of us in the large majority, those candidates and people that were doing that lost. And they should, because that was scary for sure. And it was repudiated without any ambiguity. And so to me, that's like a great validation of what's coming next, which Saturn moving through Capricorn, Saturn moving through Capricorn revealed this, it revealed this thing going on, and clearly repudiated that side, that conspiratorial, especially to undermine, the free and fair elections and things like that, where there's no proof of any wrongdoing. And by the way, we do have a thing called courts and proof, and you can take it to court and prove it, that's fine. But if you take it to court and you avail yourself of all of those things and they don't find what you're looking for, that's it. That's called a legal system. Without that, you don't have a functioning democracy. Again, people that are going to get upset, but that's just the facts. And it's been going on forever. Elections are watched, poll watchers from both sides all the time. All of this stuff is in place. And you're free to contest it and challenge it. And then once it's done, it's done. And it's always been that way. And it's not until, in fact, the Saturn through Capricorn thing, this is exactly what I'm talking about, is Saturn going through Capricorn. We never had any of this happen until the Saturn in Capricorn. After 2020 election, Trump lost. He lost without a doubt in all of those states, went to court. There was no proof of any of it, and he refused to acknowledge. And now it has become part of the Republican platform to be an election denier, and that was clearly repudiated. And so again, when someone asked, what's next? It seems that was repudiated. It's not, I mean, you can see it. And this was the fear of what just happened this last election, was there was all of these election deniers on the ballots. And people thought, what happens if Mastriano or all of these clear election deniers are now governors? This would be devastating. And they all lost. So Saturn moving through Aquarius is good news in that regard. We can see this, moving forward. And Jupiter is also now moving forward in Pisces, where he had been retrograde since July. Saturn moving forward in Pisces. Pisces is that sign of the abstract spiritual nature, the creative nature. It's the end of the cycle. And it's where we're really dissolving and letting go of a lot of these false teachings and these false beliefs and this illusion that we're, really connected to something transcendent, when we're just in these, worldly philosophies. So, for example, we have a lot of beliefs about things. Jupiter going through Pisces is really helping us, or if we're able to do it, let go of the false teachings and the illusion of connection to what's real and true. We're seeing a lot of our false teachings, our false gurus, as being false, and able to let go of them, hopefully. And all of the false teachers and the false belief systems have, been perhaps painful to see. If Jupiter in your chart, for example, is not so strong or so powerful, there's been a lot of confusion maybe around, what do I believe? But this doesn't make sense. This isn't real. And kind of waking up from the dream. That's what's trying to happen. But again, if it's difficult for you, instead of waking up from the dream, you might go further into the fantasy. You might go deeper into the, oh no, this is really, this makes me feel good. So no, I'm not going to let go of the fantasy teaching, illusion of inspiration and hope, or whatever it is that we're hanging on to. And so again, this has been the thing that's been going on since Jupiter went into Pisces. If you have good teachings and higher wisdom and really putting it into practice, and again, you're listening to an astrology teaching here, so there's every possibility that you're at least trying to dial into something that's more transcendent and cosmic. But who knows? People these days dial into astrology for all kinds of things. I know I do the readings where they just want the astrology or the astrologer to confirm their kind of fantasies, right? But again, it's really good to connect with things that are transcendent and cosmic like this. But if it's ungrounded, then it can just be another ungrounded fantasy. But again, the highest quality of the Jupiter in Pisces is the surrender and the letting go of all of the false teachings that have not really been taking you where you want to go, which is to something more transcendent, that transcendent part of your nature. And again, for many, that's very difficult to process because they've never really connected to their transcendent nature. Even it might seem like something that's their emotions or their feelings or something, but no, there's part of you that's not of this world, that is purely pure spirit. And I don't mean spiritual, like, oh yeah, when I feel this, or just like with my dog or my kids, I feel so, yeah, that's what he means. That's not what I mean. That's an emotion. That's a feeling. That's a beautiful feeling. It's a beautiful feeling you have. It's not transcendent though. It's an emotion. It's an elevated emotion. And it's fine. It's better than, oh, I'm terrified and shrinking. No, it's an expansive emotion toward something that is more transcendent in you, like this devotion, but it's not transcendent where you're not in this matrix. The transcendent consciousness is not of this world. It's expansive beyond your emotions, your identity, your body, all of that stuff. And now the great gift of Jupiter going through Pisces is, Pisces is trying to shed and let go of those things that are not transcendent. So the part of you that is not of this world is trying to wake up and come through. And so Jupiter in Pisces is going, yes, it's something beyond. It's beyond your beliefs and projections. We project. We all have these beliefs that we project. Someone just said, like people are giving up on Trump. It's a great example, not just Trump, but this projection that, oh, this is going to save me. This will save me. Definitely the cult of Trump the cult of Trump existed before Saturn went through Capricorn, but definitely since then it both hardened and bifurcated. Hardened in the sense it got more concentrated and condensed. And again, this is Saturn in Capricorn. It got more cultish because now to be in the cult of Trump, you have to believe all kinds of irrational things, that the election was stolen. It gets more concentrated. It's more based on fear, the fear porn of the cult Trump, of the Trump cult. More. And we actually saw in this last election that I'm talking about, people just abandoning it. It's like, this is just too much to hang on to. Okay, I thought he was a good president. I thought this and that, but I got to let go. This is too much. It's not worth democracy. It's not worth absolute anarchy, absolute insanity. It's not, I can't hang on to that anymore. And again, this Jupiter is very much the projection that we have on religious leaders, political leaders, or whatever it is, where we're projecting our belief structure, right? And again, in Pisces, it's elevating, it's pushing it up. Like, is this really worth your beliefs? And do you really believe this? And Jupiter in Pisces is trying to say, no, that real thing that you're trying to believe in is transcendent of this world. And it is. Your true nature is transcendent. So all of the things that we project our beliefs upon is the part of us that's trying to transcend. We think, oh yes, this is a transcendent being. I mean, people worship Trump like he's a messiah or something, or like he's Jesus or something. But again, what is Jesus? Jesus is a projection of our transcendent nature, right? But in the Eastern sense, in Eastern thinking, it's not this one being that we project all of our savior stuff onto. We, in fact, are the deity. Our nature itself is a divine, that we are the divine being. All of us are, because we come from the divine source, and then the divine source itself becomes our, is built into our nature. So in the Eastern sense, we're not projecting onto one savior person. We're trying to dissolve into that awareness that we are all from the same source. And so again, it's a different emphasis. And but in the Eastern sense, people project onto God as well. We project onto Shiva or Vishnu or Lakshmi, Ganesha. So it can look very similar, but when you see a person's Jupiter that's less cosmic or less elevated, they'll be much more religious about something, where it'll be like, this is my religious belief. But when it goes to Pisces, all of the religious beliefs start to become less satisfying, and we start to question and want to dissolve the attachment to the worldly form of the thing and that worldly nature, where there's a separation between me and the thing I'm projecting onto. And so this is really what's been going on since last April, is trying to see beyond that form of the projection and instead dissolve that towards something that is transcendent, as I said. So this is this is a lot of what's going on now. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So I just wanted to add that really quick as well, so people don't forget to like and share if you are enjoying this. So again, this nature of where we're at right now with Jupiter moving through Pisces is also very important to where we're going, which it's going to finish its transit through Pisces and then go into Aries in April of next year. And then after Jupiter moves through Aries, Pisces, when it enters Aries, it's like a rebirth. So there's a huge rebirth happening as we dissolve and let go of the false teachings. It's like we're in the womb. This is what Pisces is really about, like being in the womb, being reborn, being regenerated. So again, this is what the dissolving is about. It's that dissolving of that form and this lifeblood. Like, this is what inspires me. This is what inspires me. It's this thing. Like, we try to keep that up. Jupiter goes through Pisces like it's been, and it's like, but that form is an ultimate hindrance to my transcendent soul nature. So that's what Jupiter in Pisces has been since April of this year. Again, it's like being reborn, dissolving the old life, and then you're in the chrysalis, like the end of the past life. We go through this regeneration process in Pisces. Then we get born when it goes into Aries. So we're going to have a spiritual rebirth with Jupiter going into Aries starting in April of 2023. I'm very hopeful about what's coming. Again, one of the things that I'm hopeful about, I took the lesson from these recent trends, especially like this last election in the US, like I talked about, because I think everybody was very worried, being on the verge of this, like, we're about to lose it. If this craziness would have taken hold, and it didn't, it was repudiated and pushed back. People are like, that's just too far. I can go far, but I can't go that far. And that's great, because it shows that there is a wall and there is a line against that, so we can move together collectively, at least with that part of the agreement intact. And not just in the US, by the way. We're seeing a lot of these moves toward tyranny fall. Look at what's happening in Iran and the protest against that tyranny. I said in the last update that I did on the full moon in Aries that a lot of it revolved around tyranny and pushing back against it. And we really saw this happen right after the last the last lunar eclipse in Aries, which happened the day of the election in the U.S. But again, it's been an inflection point for a lot of things. You saw the Ukraine war change. They pushed the Russians out of Kherson. We see the Iranian up. They're not backing down around the world. Even I was very encouraged by the Biden meeting with Xi Jinping in China. Saturn moving into Aquarius collectively, it looks like we've come through this Saturn and Capricorn pressure better than we may have expected a month ago. So moving into Aquarius, I see a more collective focus, and Jupiter finishing the transit through Pisces into next year, really sort of being reborn spiritually and inspirationally and ready for a rebirth with Jupiter going into Aries. Now, again, he's also going to be joined Rahu early in the year, or once he goes into Aries, it's going to be close to Rahu, and that'll be pretty intense. And of course, I'll do updates as that happens. And I did talk about that as one of the important shifts in the 2023 Vedic astrology forecast. You could see down here, it says confusion and fired up over what inspires you, Jupiter Rahu conjunction. So these are the 10 most important shifts that I focus on in that 2023 Vedic astrology forecast. You see, reflecting on your teachings, we start with Mercury Retrograde, then 2.5 years of social duty and service for you. That's the Saturn in Aquarius. And I talk about that for all of the 12 signs, of course, including yours. Then the annular solar eclipse, impulsive self-will and growth, which is a solar eclipse in Aries, reevaluating your ideas in verbal battles, another Mercury retrograde. He's going to be retrograde in fire signs. Then Jupiter enters Aries, then Jupiter Rahu conjunction, then courageously fighting for a higher purpose. Mars goes into Leo. Again, this is going to be a big shift of Mars into Leo after he has been in these more subdued signs. And then a few other things there with the later eclipses. So again, that awaits you if you haven't gotten it yet in the 2023 forecast. It's right around the corner. But I wanted to make this quick update. And again, if people did have questions, you can ask them through the super chat on YouTube. I haven't had any super chat questions yet, so I'm just going to say a few more things here and then wrap up. But again, I feel like there's been some big shifting, big shifts that just happened. We went through this eclipse cycle, which was huge. The solar eclipse in Libra, the lunar eclipse in Aries, really kind of in some ways sort of took out the trash with a lot of very low-level exploitive energy. And particularly, again, not just the U.S. election, but we see even what's been happening internationally, particularly like in Ukraine, in Iran, different things like that. A big shift has happened, and it's moving toward the next phase. And again, the next phase is what I'm talking about. The next cycle is the next thing coming is Saturn is a month away from being in Aquarius for the next 2.5 years. That could have looked a lot differently if, let's say, that this last election didn't go the way it went. And there's clear signs of what the election meant. All of those handpicked Trump election deniers lost. I mean, it was clear. Whereas normal Republicans who aren't election denying in the cult, because that's really what it is. There is no real guiding philosophy. It's like you're in the cult, bringing that forward, or you're a regular Republican. All the regular Republicans won, and the cult members didn't. And so again, and it was an important distinction because they were election denying. The last election wasn't real, and if we get elected, I mean, one guy said they'll never be, we'll never lose another election again. Coming out saying it. If we don't win, we're just going to not certify. I mean, this is just crazy. So again, that getting pushed back, which was clearly what happened, is great news. Moving forward, this Saturn finishing Capricorn and moving into Aquarius means that's going to be the collective backdrop. At least there's that preserved moving forward. And then again, but within that, though, it shows a big shift happen where we're more interested in these collective goals, and we have to build that. And then Jupiter finishing the transit through Pisces. Again, it's a great time to really dissolve your false projections, false illusions, and whatnot toward something that is authentically, pure, transcendent, and ultimately yours. Because the yours part is the Jupiter and Aries. It's like, okay, I've let go of these false teachings, these false prophets, whether they're political figures or whatever it might be. The Jupiter in Pisces is dissolving that. I've let go of that. And then Jupiter in Aries is like, okay, so this is what's inspiring me now. I'm ready to move forward and take action on this. For someone like me, who has a guru and who's had a practice for a long time, it's also been helping me to dissolve a lot of the false ideas, not just ideas, but like feelings and emotions and actions around my teachings, to just kind of repurify and reset. So this is really what's going on. And again, I really encourage people to get the 2023 Vedic astrology forecast. It's very easy. Just go to 2023vedicastrology.com, and then you just enter your name and email address, and pick a time, and then enter your name and email address and come to the free class. And I know I hit a couple things at some people. As soon as I say anything about politics, it triggers people. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how else to talk about these things except honestly. And again, if you have a problem with any of it, go ahead and, write in the chat, but be specific. If your comment is just going to be, you're a liberal idiot, or you're an idiot, or you're brainwashed, I'm going to delete the comment. Okay. That's not taking anybody anywhere. But aside from all that, I hope you have a great day and you take care. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other